Scott Hobbs today is going to join us and tell us a little bit about his business. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation because Scott's running a phenomenal business. So, Scott, what do you do?
Well, we execute extremely complicated residential projects in as enjoyable a way as possible for everybody involved. So that includes the owners, the architects, the designers, and our vendors, and even ourselves. Now, we're building prototypes, and when you build prototypes, making that an enjoyable process is hard. And we've spent a lot of time trying to become very professional and understand how to do things better to help everybody to really enjoy this process.
So you say enjoyable. Construction's hard. It's full of challenges. Every day is a new challenge. What about this do you do differently to try to make this enjoyable for everybody?
Well, it starts with the basics and the fact that we're good at what we do. So, I mean, we understand quality, we understand scheduling, we understand how to buy correctly and how to, watch the client's money so that they can actually maximize their value. We think ahead so that our we're trying not to surprise people. So it's like, look, we're going to need the appliances in 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month. We need them next week. Now we're delayed. We're not showing up saying, oh, did you choose the appliances? Oh, shoot. Well, now we're delayed. So it's getting ahead of things so that people can plan and anticipate, and then they can actually make, they can make decisions in a way that's rational and not under a lot of pressure. For many of our clients, this is the first time they built. Some of the clients have built many times. Sometimes some have had very good experiences. Many have had bad experiences. And people who are wealthy have many options. They can spend their money however they want. They can give it all away. They can all do vacations. They can buy built houses. They can do whatever they want. We want them to go ahead and understand that creating something special can be fun. And that's why we try to, again, if we take a lot of the stress out, people can enjoy it and actually see things created. Not surprisingly, a reasonable number of our clients are financial people. They get to stare at computer screens and they work on numbers and spreadsheets. But to be able to actually go out in the real world and see something created that they are a part of is something that's pretty special. And again, most people don't do this more than once, maybe twice in their entire lives. So we want to make it into a special event that they will remember and think fondly of, which helps them to think fondly of us.
Oh, there
And
you go.
hopefully they tell their friends.
There you go. Yeah. So that's excellent. I mean, I love that approach. And building that fun environment, obviously you're still running a business. So let me ask you a few questions about you and your business. How long have you been an entrepreneur?
So let me go back a little bit. So we're a third generation family business. So grandfather started it back in the mid 50s. Father joined the business in the late 60s, took it over in the 70s, ran it until 1997, at which point I took it over. My brother Ian also joined it around that same time, and so we're partners in the business. Me personally, I went off to college, was an ROTC cadet, was in the Army for 3 years, and then made a decision to come back to the business. Now, one important aspect of, I believe, for almost any family business, and I'm probably off topic a little bit here, but is it's normally very beneficial to have family members work somewhere else for at least a few years before coming back to a family business. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that gets into emotions between fathers and sons, and how does a son end up knowing his true measure? How does he know whether or not his boss, who's his dad, is being fair or is remembering the time that he dinged the car when he was 16? So getting out there in the real world and getting some experience as to what your real measure is and how other operations work is very important. It provides a basis for a bigger perspective on what's out there. So if you go straight into a family business, that's all you know about business. So going out into somewhere else, and I went into the Army, and that's a really big corporation, monstrous. And of course, they do things that are very different than construction, although there's a lot of parallels, as there are in many other businesses. And my brother actually went into news and entertainment, and which actually has a lot of project management to it also. So came back to the business in 92. And I worked outside for a couple of years as a carpenter and a laborer and a superintendent, and then came inside as a project manager. got an MBA through an executive program at Columbia while working as a PM, and then took over the business in '97, and I've been at it ever since.
You talk about taking over the business. How was that from a financial perspective? How was that handled? Did dad just hand you the business and say, Scott, have a good life? Um, how
So,
was all that transmitted? And I asked that because a lot of businesses do have this challenge. Like, okay, what am I going to do with this business? How do I walk away from it? How
sure.
did your dad handle that? How was that handled between you and your brother?
So it's a lot of open communication over as long a period of time as possible. And so from when I first, after probably the first year of joining the business, we had very open discussions about what it would look like to take it over. Eventually, when the time was right for our dad, we bought him out of the business. And it's very tricky for a custom construction company in that how much is the business and how much is the person. So Hobbs Inc. had been my father had built it up to, I think, probably around $30 million or so. And we had, boy, I'm not even sure anymore, like 25 to 30 employees. We had systems. We understood what we were doing. It was a real business. And so we did a purchase where basically we used the company profits over a number of years to buy out my father. So he went from really being on top of things and working all the way to slowly us going ahead and walking parallel to him then disappearing. And then he got paid for a long time after he disappeared. And that's a very efficient and effective way to make a transfer. Because again, selling it to someone else, I mean, there's apparently people out there right now buying under private equity and other reasons they're buying custom construction companies. I don't think that's going to turn out well. It's really got there are no debutante or or very few purely professional managers inside of this business. It takes someone who actually has skin in the game, who's willing to work the hours, deal with people who are irate for good and not good reasons, and really being able to accept the risks involved inside of this business, and have a long-term perspective, which again tends not to be investors. So, selling to children, family, or employees is normally the best way inside of our industry to transfer a business.
That's great information, and I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate that. Now, you said you bought this out when the company was doing about 30 million a year. What's the best year you've had since you've been running the business?
I think we've topped 125. So, we expanded and we entered new marketplaces. So we used to just be in the Fairfield and Westchester County of Connecticut, New York, so suburb of New York City. And then we expanded and we have an office inside of the New York City. We have an office in the Hamptons. We're in northern New Jersey. From our Connecticut office, we go north into farm country / estate country up in upstate Connecticut and New York. We make sure that we have local presence everywhere, which is vitally important. Some people are trying to do stuff nationally, and I find that hard. I mean, you've got to be able to actually get somewhere, take a look, put eyes on it. And certainly the people that are local will understand that local market so much better than anyone else. And this is a relationship business on both the sales side and on the vendor side. So having those personal contacts and understanding the localities and, not doing things that make you into an outsider, which hurts you and your customers. Tricky.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, 125 million, that's massive growth up from the 30 million. What were your biggest challenges as you experienced that growth? And how would you look at that differently? Is there anything you severely learned about that you definitely would readdress again?
Sure. Well, I think that you end up, and this is common to most businesses, but you'll reach plateaus in growth. And so, I mean, getting to $1 million is hard, but then getting from 1 million to 2 or 3 million is not that hard. However, getting up to 7 or 8 million, now you need to have another structure and you need to have more people and they have to be trained right. You have to more process and procedure. Then you'll hit 10 million and you'll be there for a disturbingly long period of time as stuff goes in and out or works and doesn't work. And then all of a sudden you make a jump up to 20 or 30 million. And then again, you'll double at some other point, you'll double up. And I think you have to be prepared for these plateaus. And yeah, if you think about it, if it's just somebody in a truck, there's not a lot of infrastructure necessary. You go out there and you work yourself and you drive whatever you do. Then you pick up a couple of guys. And well, you better learn how to use those guys and use them well. But it's only a couple of guys. Then you get bigger. Now all of a sudden you start, at 10 employees, you start having another set of rules as to how you have to deal with your employees. So you need some extra finance help. And oh, by the way, what you used to do on a little spreadsheet or on the back of an envelope, finance wise, now you have to really start tracking things. And before you know it, now you have a finance department. And oh, by the way, you might want to specialize and have estimators who actually handle under the sales side of things and estimating. You certainly have split. You need superintendents and project managers. You can't manage this all yourself. How do you manage them? Who handles the sales side? Do you need an HR person in order to actually deal with all the medical insurance and the personnel issues? Who's out there trying to find and hire good people? If it's all you're limited in what you can do. There's only so many hours in the day. And by the way, entrepreneurs are notoriously poor at doing everything. Think we can do everything. And by the way, no one else can do it as well as we can, but we don't do it well. And then you add in like IT. So guy drops his cell phone in an inconvenient place and, gets destroyed. Who's getting him the new cell phone? Or does the super not have a cell phone for 2 weeks? Things almost goes down. So you don't buy a new one, but you want to try to get it fixed. How long can you tolerate that? Are you working an integrated platform and integrating the finances to things? So you need to have a lot of help in order to get where you're going. And again, you don't need everything day one because you'll go broke. But as you grow, you need to get good and then better and better people to support your efforts.
So that took I'm assuming that took a lot of planning. You had to have a lot of foresight in doing any of that. And honestly, at 125 million, you're doing more processing of client invoices going out, some payments going out, client invoices getting paid than most guys are even going to dream of doing in a year. You're doing that in a month. And that takes a lot of processes. How big is that process operation behind you? Is this a massive staff, or how do you handle that? Like I said, a lot of guys can't dream of doing, 13 million a year. You're doing that a month.
Sure. You have to get very efficient. And it's kind of funny that I once had an owner's rep who said, oh, and I've heard like you have like $10 million in accounts receivable. And I'm like, yeah, that's a month. That's what you're supposed to have. It's just, and again, you better structure for that, because if you're only structured for $1 million and you have 10 million, that's a big deal. If you're structured correctly, then it's not a big deal. It all flows. So we have very good people. We try to automate as much as we possibly can. We try to standardize and follow procedure. So we have 3 people in finance. We have an HR director. We have a head IT guy and a helper. And again, at a certain point, you need both, because the whole cybersecurity world these days is just awful. The number of attacks that we get daily is staggering. So you need to have IT for support. You have a little bit of administrative support. We really don't have much. Each of our projects, we basically think that a project manager can do roughly 2 project equivalents. And that's a vague topic, and almost intentionally so, because, is a $5 million job take the same amount of work as a 20? Well, some $20 million jobs actually work very well and can be handled and done by one person. Some $5 million jobs, that's a full-time job for that project manager doing the 5. So you have to evaluate kind of what that project equivalency is. In general, a project manager should be able to handle 2. However, things have gotten a lot more complex, and a lot of our design partners are challenged, and they're getting squeezed on their fees. And ultimately, you have to do what you have to do to make the project a success. And then we also have superintendents who are out in the field, those are the guys that actually build it, short-term scheduling. When they show up at 6:30 in the morning and they do their paperwork and think, and it's 7:15, the questions start and they don't end until the day is done. and they make a million decisions a day, and what has to get documented, what has to be, how do you look ahead and try to, ask the questions before they become critical. And everyone's got to fill those roles, and we've got to communicate. But again, we try to keep the actual admin side lean, but that means that you got to have your processes down and you got to have really good people. And I'd much rather have an expensive single person than have one person who's expensive and good than have two or three people who are very mediocre and save a couple dollars.
It sounds like you're running a lean operation. I mean, that's really incredible that you can run that much volume on that relatively low number of overhead staff. That's kudos to you. That's really incredible.
I will throw in that each of our divisions, so our New Jersey, New York, Hamptons, plus our care division, which deals with ongoing maintenance and expedited projects for clients, they each have a divisional head, and those guys are very, very important. They really handle and basically run their own businesses internal to our business.
Now you mentioned earlier, you mentioned these these remote managers that you have on your individual divisions and the relationship issues you have with the clients and being local and knowing the projects. How much time do you spend on job sites, and how much time do you expect those managers to spend on job sites and being physically there? I mean, we all think it's construction. We got to be on the site. What does your day look like?
Well, so we run what's called a project executive system. And so each of our jobs has superintendent, project manager, and then project executive. And the project executive helps to make sure that our team, if they're focused on trees, remember we're in a forest. If you're focused on the forest, don't run into that tree. And so we just keep trying to make sure that the team operates correctly. It provides a little bit of extra oomph and power with the vendors, that the project executive, if you get a call from him, that's different than the super or the project manager. And it gives a client, we keep that direct contact with the client, that they know that we're paying attention to their job. So the project executives are myself, my brother Ian, each of the divisional managers. And then we also have a couple other guys. Our head of pre-construction might do something. We also have a building science guy who's also in charge of field construction, who may go ahead and fill that role. So the project executives try to attend, let's call it 3 out of 4 of the weekly meetings. It's nice that now that everyone uses Zoom and Teams, that, hopefully 1 or 2 of those meetings a month might be just by Zoom and Teams. Getting out to the job site is absolutely important. And I will say, as a quick aside, it's important as you grow to make sure that you actually get to do some of the stuff that you like doing in this business. And I found that at a certain point during the career, I had managed to go ahead and work myself out of entirely anything dealing with construction. And I hated it. I just hated it. I mean, one of the true joys about our business is we get to see this stuff grow. We get to see these micro, problems and questions. And, we get to really test our brains as to, how do you do this? And is it a good idea to do this? So I do like getting out to the site. I love seeing my guys. I love checking in on them, making sure that they're doing okay, making sure that we're supporting them as a company. And while, again, we're much, much better at doing that by phone and video than in the past, it's still nice to actually be there. And there is no question that when you go to a site and you actually walk around, you're looking and you're seeing that electrician, what is he doing? Is this the right guy? Or you see that laborer and you're going, wow, that guy knows how to work. And you're able just to, spot the stuff and talk to people and find out what's going on. So I think it's important to be there for the client. And by the way, if you don't form that relationship with the client throughout your entire project, and then you have something go wrong, which in construction, something always goes wrong, now you have a problem. So maintaining that relationship is really important throughout. So when there are bad times, you've invested the capital that you can get through those much easier. Even when it's really bad, you can get through it much easier. So yeah, you get out to the job sites. In addition to actually being out at the job site once a month, we do something called a monthly project review, where we have a set agenda that we go over with the PM and the super. And it's kind of that hour and a half or so a month where we're working, on the project, not in the project. And inevitably, we start looking further out and we're spotting the stuff that may be out there that's wrong. We try to do it as a truly open communication that if there's any tension in the team, let's deal with it. If you choose not to speak about tension, then don't come to me later and complain about your partner or something. I mean, we got to actually deal with these things and get them out there and open. If we learn from stuff that we've done, and learning is frequently, did we make a mistake and we have to pay for something? Then let's document this and let's put it out to everybody so that as a company, we make the mistake once. And again, we might make the same mistake. Hopefully we don't make it in the same way, but make it once, spread it out to everybody, and let's be a continual learning organization that with our mass, people get to build, they get to really see and learn from, 20 projects a year as opposed to one or two. And that makes a really big difference as to how we view things, what we can catch, how we can avoid problems in the future, and hopefully just build a better product in a better way.
And I know personally, and I think you support that is the big part of construction is building stuff. I mean, it's the fun part. I mean, that's why we get into it. We enjoy the building part, and then this whole business side comes along and it starts sucking up our day. And you mentioned there that at one point, you had gotten away from that. How do you balance your time? Like, how do you budget those hours that you have available in a day to say, I am going to drive out to a job site? That windshield time is expensive,
Sure.
and expensive mainly from a time allocation standpoint. How do you balance your day and try to get in those job sites while taking care of all the rest of the demands that people are asking of you?
Well, it's a tough one, and I don't necessarily do it right. I mean, that's the honest part of it. You do have to prioritize, and obviously, if there's urgent issues, and you learn over time what's urgent, and sometimes and I think that's probably one of the secrets to successful builders is you spot as early as possible what's going to be a problem, and you kill it before it becomes a big problem. And that's very important. And again, sometimes it's eating crow. And by the way, when you make mistakes, fess up to it as fast as you can and get to the other side of things. And bad news never gets better with age. So deal with those urgent issues. We then prioritize. We also prioritize under the sales side of things that sales cycle is ephemeral. I mean, you don't know. Somebody calls up, and if you don't get back to them in a certain amount of time, somebody else might, and it might be over, and you miss out on that opportunity. Filling your calendar ahead of time. So, I mean, like for our monthly project reviews, they're all in my calendar. And so I actually have to move them if I'm not going to do them. If I have to try to schedule them every single month and get everyone together and when will this happen, that doesn't work. For the job meetings, schedule the same time every single week. And again, there'll be exceptions. It doesn't work, something doesn't happen. That's fine, but schedule them ahead of time. And then that allows you those blocks. And then inevitably, as a business owner, you'll find that some of the thinking time or the planning time or the added time, that's going to happen, kind of after hours. You may have to come in under the weekends and do some of that because nobody bothers you. And then otherwise, if people are around, they're going to ask questions. And I try to do my best to support my people when they need it. But I also try to go ahead and push them to make decisions on their own. And I back them up on it. And then again, that's a tough thing to do because people make mistakes. And if you fry people every time they make a mistake, then they start coming to you and asking about everything before they do anything. And then you have that question as to, well, why do I have you here? I mean, I need you to do this stuff and I need you to actually take risks and I need you. And as long as you're doing it with good intention, and as long as you're not making the same mistake the same way, you'll never get in trouble. If this is great, okay, that's what it is. Let's share the mistake. Let's get it out there and let's hope everyone else learns from the same thing and let's hope we get better. But blocking out your time is the biggest part. And again, some of the times I will go ahead and I'll put on my own schedule. This is when I'm going to sit and think, or this is when I'm going to plan and do something. And I think that becomes important.
Yeah. So like doing anything else, you plan out your business, but you also plan out your schedule and plan out how you're going to utilize that time to be the most effective manager that you can be.
Correct.
Now you're managing a lot of money, on the behalf of the clients. You got a lot of cash flow moving through the business. What would be the best financial advice that you've ever received or that you could ever give to new builders or new entrepreneurs out there?
Properly capitalize. So, I mean, as you get into the business, whatever you make, don't take it all. I mean, a lot of it has to stay in the business. Cash flow is tremendously important inside of this business. So, I mean, live within your means, build up the capital inside of the business, make it so you can function and aren't, running around trying to find dollars, looking into the couch cushions for change in order to make a payment to somebody. That's humongously important. Paying attention to the dollars and being honest about it with your clients. So whatever the billing cycle is, I need to get paid in that billing cycle, and then set up the processes so that hopefully everything follows along that you do get paid that way. And if you don't, make sure you're talking to the clients about it. It's never comfortable asking somebody for money, but you have to ask for the money. We have found that we try to pay all of our vendors every month in full at the end of the month, whether we've been paid or not. And that tends to get a whole lot of loyalty from our vendors and tends to get us better service. And the guys know that they're going to get paid by us. So, I view it as a sort of ethical imperative that we got to pay our guys. In this industry, that's kind of optional. And I find it still kind of disgusts me is probably the best way to put it. Somebody works for you and does what they're supposed to do, you owe them the money. And if it comes out of your pocket, because you didn't do something else right, it comes out of your pocket. Now, can you ask for a discount? Of course, you can ask for a discount, but all the guys that work for us work too hard to be giving free stuff away to us because we made mistakes. I would also say on the financial side that making sure that you have good financial people behind you. Set up the right accounting system. And there's plenty of ways to set up the right accounting system. This isn't rocket science. It's been done before. It'll be done again. Set up the accounts, follow the discipline, and that'll carry you a long way. It's not optional. You have to do this or your business will fail.
That's excellent advice. And I honestly, I hear that from most builders all the time. Know your numbers, track your money. It's a business. This is important. And, when I ask that question, that's typically the answer I get is the most important thing is the money side of it. It's a business.
And actually along that way, I mean, somebody's dead when they start using the money for current project to pay for past project. Nobody ever catches up. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, every once in a while somebody does, but almost never does that work out well. And it destroys our industry. It means the guys can underbid stuff for a period of time because literally they're stealing from future clients and future vendors because the vendors aren't going to get paid on those jobs either. And it destroys the industry. So whatever you got to do to make each project work and function on its own. And then from a corporate basis, if you have problems, you're handling it at the corporate level, not trying to go ahead and again, take this $100,000 payment from client A and using it to pay off all the vendors from project B and C. It's just not going to work.
Right. It's a recipe for disaster.
And if one of those clients happens to be Uncle Sam, that's even worse.
Yeah, they get their hand out there. They're going to get their money one way or the other. And that's a real bad downward spiral. So just a quick recap, if you wanted to give a 60-second masterclass in construction, what would be your best advice for anybody who's just starting out or somebody who's reached one of those plateaus that you talked about where they want to get to that next level of growth and they just feel stuck and don't know what to do?
So I think it very important is making sure that you have some sort of peer group and or even non-industry group in order to make sure that you're outside of your business thinking about other businesses or how other people do something. Because it's human beings, we get stuck and it's hard to think outside of the box when you're in a box. So being able to go ahead and be with mentors and peers and other, in and outside of the industry, trying to learn and expand your own horizons, that'll hopefully get you out of that process. I think it's always important to be a continual learner. So not only among the peers and the support groups, it's look back upon what you've done, learn from things that are good and bad, try to implement those and make sure that they move forward. I'd always recommend everyone to take the long view. The long view is how you end up being successful in the long term. And again, you want to be successful in the short term, good luck. I mean, then deal with the inevitable fall. So, your word means a lot, operating with integrity, be willing to put in the work. And it's a lot of work. But at the same time, going ahead and changing a little bit of just how you think as to, how privileged we are to be able to build something special, to work with people who, I mean, again, so many people in the construction industry are just so awesome. They're really cool. They've got great stories. They're salt of the earth people who you really want to succeed. Make sure you actually get involved inside of their lives, and not everyone's. Don't get involved in everyone's, but know something about them, and form these relationships, and be willing to go ahead and mentor other people who may become competitors. Help to give back. Pay attention in your community. Don't neglect your family. Families, at the end of the day, maybe some people will show up in coats and ties at your funeral, but you certainly want your family there. That's an important part of this. And I've never heard anyone that said, "Yeah, it was great that I stressed all my family relationships." That's not it. So I'm going to keep a family first attitude on things, and allow your employees to do the same. Having employees go through a divorce is because you ground them up is not a good thing to do either. Um, so I mean, reach out, and then final part also is just learn a lot about sales. Sales is a specific skill set, and the number of people who go, "Oh, I'm great at sales," and you're like, "No, you're not. Quite frankly, you're terrible at it." And the fact you think you're good at it is very detrimental. And most people don't go ahead and they don't learn that. And some people think, "Oh, sales is slimy and it's gross," whatever else. You're like, no. I mean, if you believe in your product, if you think you really have a great service, and are able to build a great house, you owe it to your clients to make sure that they can differentiate between you and the slick guy who hires another company under his name to do the work. I mean, and so learn how to sell yourself, sell your product, sell your, what are you good at? And again, you owe it to your business and you owe it to your clients to be good at sales.
I love that sales comment. I think that is so important. And I think we all got stuck in the 1970s used car salesman, and we saw the slimy salesman image that none of us wanted to be. So we naturally said, I don't want to be that guy. And understanding that if you're providing value to your customers, you owe it to them to tell them what you do and how you can build them a better house and take care of the properties that they have. And that's selling. And it's not slimy. It's adding value to them and their lives. So I think that is phenomenal advice. I love the sales part of it. I totally agree. I think too many people ignore that vital step. And you're right. Too many walk away going, "Yeah, I'm great at sales." And they're not. They're not. They don't understand it. They don't practice it. And it's a skill. And it's a skill that needs to be learned, and it's a valuable skill in every aspect of your lives. Scott, again, I thank you very much for sharing this information. You've got a great company you're running right there. I'm sure there's a lot of value here that other builders are going to glean from this, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate it and really enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you.